Now, moving on to our first section, that is the closed flexor and extensor tendon injuries. We'll be in this section briefly going through its overview. Flexor tendon injuries, what are the causes of closed flexor tendon injuries, as well as extensor tendon injuries which can happen to the hand, excluding trauma. You know, this tendon of flexor tendons are actually over the palmar side of the hand, and there are two main tendons include the flexor digitorum superficialis and flexor digitorum profundus, while the extensor tendons are mainly on the dorsal side or on the extensor surface of the hand. Coming to the closed injuries, which could be due to especially to the common to the flexor tendons, could be due to avulsion with or without a bone fragment, especially if the tendon has the sudden trauma. Although there was not a penetrating trauma, but this has resulted in avulsion type of fracture, this can also injure the tendon as well. Or it could be from the distal failings of the flexor tendon, that is the rugger jersey finger. What happens is that FDP is attached on the distal failings, and just as the base of the distal failings are forming just distal to the distal interphalangeal joint. If that tendon gets avulsed, what happens is that the extensor tendons which are acting on the distal interphalangeal joint extend it dorsally. This leads to a pathology called as rugger jersey finger, in which there is abnormal extension of the distal interphalangeal joint. Or the most commonly cause is actually the rheumatoid hand, or the rheumatoid arthritis, which primarily affects the hand, can be very devastating, especially producing deformities such as ulnar deviation, tendon displacement, as well as attrition, as well may lead to rupture of the tendons as well. Now coming to what happens is, if you know this, the way the flexor tendons are actually attached and the surface is, there's a volar plate connecting between the interphalangeal joints, as well as the proximal as well as the distal interphalangeal joint. Now, if this volar plate is placed too distally or it gets disrupted for some reason, then this can abrade FPL, flexor pollicis tendon, causing the loss of thumb tip flexion. Flexor pollicis longus is actually attached at the base of the distal failings of the thumb. If that is disrupted, this can lead to FPL teething, and eventually the thumb flexion would be affected. Now, other causes could be the sharp bone from osteoarthritis. As you know, with advanced osteoarthritis, there is actually osteophytes formation in the hand. These osteophytes can injure the tendon when the tendon actually glide over these osteophytes or abrade over these osteophytes, especially during the movements of the fingers. This can lead to laceration of the adjacent flexor tendons. This could be a piece of triquetral arthritis. Now, usually the bones and the carpal bones are also very important, because the flexor tendons pass from the forearm above the carpal bone and then go into the hand. And these arthritis or osteophytes of these pisiform bone or triquetral bone, especially it damages the flexor ulnaris tendon, and this can lead to laceration or abrasion of the FCU. Then it is going to be the scaphoid trapezoid arthritis. Now this could be due to the carpal bone, and this can affect the flexor tendons of the radial side, such as flexor digitorum, flexor pollicis longus, as well as flexor carpi radialis. All these can be affected over the radial side as well. As I told you, usually if they lacerate FPL, this is called as Mannerfeld syndrome due to STT arthritis. Now coming to the management, if there is a closed injury, now their problems are two things. The tendon is not normal. Why? Because there was also already an associated pathological process going on as well. So one is, first you have to remove the cause. That is, which could be anything like an osteophyte, it could be an avulsion injury, or it could be something related to rheumatoid as well. So the first is the removal of cause. Second is the reconstruction of the tendon transfer or two-stage tendon graft. Usually what happens is, because once the tendon gets ruptured, it retracts quickly and there's a large gap present in between, so its primary repair is not always possible. Therefore the gap can be only covered with two forms. Either there is a two-stage procedure that you first apply a silicone rod or a hunter rod over the surface on which the soft tissue can form an envelope, and then this can act as a tunnel by which you can pass the tendon through a tendon graft. Or the second option is simply go for a tendon transfer, that if the flexor tendon is injured, use an extensor tendon to instead of in place of flexor tendon, so that the function can be achieved. But either way, you have to go for some kind of a delayed reconstruction or two-stage construction. Primary repair of like end-to-end anastomosis tendon is usually not suitable and usually does not yield very good results. Now come to the extensor tendon. Extensor tendons also can get damaged as by similar cases to the flexor tendons. Most common again over here is the culprit is the rheumatoid arthritis. Especially rheumatoid arthritis has high propensity to damage extensor tendons. This could be other causes could be osteoarthritis of distal radialar joint, which can abrade finger extensors, leading to Vaughan Jackson syndrome, in which there is excessive flexion as well as ulnar deviation at the wrist joint. This could be a metal work, for example, a dorsally placed plate over the distal radius. This can abrade extensor pollicis longus or even the extensor digital communis, leading to tendon rupture. EPL can get ruptured with its tight compartment after undisplaced distal radius fracture. This is a very common happening of, especially Cooley's fracture was treated in a cast. After 2 months or 3 months, patient complains that he or she cannot actually extend her thumb, and the result is due to the EPL rupture due to the tight compartment of the cast. This can occur with this kind of a problem when you have old age patients and there is a problem in the tendon as well, and it has actually a chronic history as well. It has taken at least 2 to 3 months. Usually you cannot straight away go for a primary repair. So the management is that same for that of the flexor tendons. Most commonly the primary repair is avoided. We either go for a two-stage reconstruction or a tendon graft, which can be utilized as well, or similarly tendon transfer can also be done just in case of flexor tendon which are normally working can be transferred back to the extensor side so that the function is not compromised. One of the pathologies called a sagittal band can suddenly rupture, especially during excessive extension or flexion at the metacarpophalangeal joint. This could maybe spontaneously in elderly people, especially with the rheumatoid arthritis, or this could be post-traumatic as well. Our classical example is after a punch. When the patient is punching, the metacarpophalangeal joint is in flexion, and the excessive flexion in this joint can lead to this kind of sagittal band rupture of the extensor tendons. In this section, we have briefly gone through the mechanism of injuries and what are the causes of the closed tendon injuries. Usually the mechanism is such that it could be either due to associated with rheumatoid arthritis or osteophytes from the osteoarthritis, or there could be some kind of avulsion injury, whether in case of flexor tendon or in case of extensor tendon. It is important to know that we cannot go for primary repair because the tendons are also primarily diseased as well in most of the cases. So primary repair does not yield good results. In this case, the options for best for us is usually to go for a two-stage repair, which could be in form of first a graft can be placed, a hunter rod can be placed, and tunnel can be utilized. Later on the tendon can be passed through that tunnel in form of a graft, or we can go for a direct repair in form of a tendon transfer. That is, if the pathology lies in the flexor tendon, we can use an extensor tendon for the flexor tendon so that function is not compromised, or vice versa. If the extensor tendon injury is there, then we can use the flexor tendon for the extensor tendon so that the function of the extensor tendon is not compromised. Thank you very much. Keep watching sqadia.com.